Hey, John, can you hear me? John, can you hear me, brother? I see you. You look handsome. Lori and John, can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
can you hear me?
I can hear you perfect.
Beautiful.
I'm gonna say hi and get out of the way.
Lori, how are you? Nice to meet you.
I'm great. How
Thank
are you
her.
doing?
Thank her for setting all this up.
I know this is great. You guys acted like you guys were technologically challenged, but we're good to go.
I'm in
There's
the
a-
business. Yeah.
There's
you
a
want a little
volume. Yeah, a little more volume.
I just gotta call my producers real quick, and they're gonna just be on the phone the whole time, and they'll probably have a couple questions for you.
Not a problem.
Wait, speak again so we can hear you.
I'm the most handsome guy in Boston. Don't tell anybody.
Your secret's safe with us.
All right, thank you. All right, I'll be back in like 30 seconds. I'm just gonna call these guys.
You got it. I'm gonna
You can have 31.
All right.
put my phone on silent here.
This all situated.
They're gonna go live at 12, so you're not gonna want anybody walking behind you. You know?
Yeah, sure.
No. Bring that down. No?
I'm done with the crowd. Know what I mean? I speak in Thailand. One night in Bangkok.
Night in Bangkok. One night in Bangkok, it's a hard man to work.
What days of the week is it? Oh, we need one day.
My friend will come by around 2 p.m. to pour the cement table.
Cheers.
We do have a little one,
Oh, he has it on. I think he has it on silent anyway.
Oh, he-
I could see his thing. It says right here.
Right, but we're not on mute.
No,
You can
we're
hear
not.
us.
Okay. So if you swear, it's okay. I think you can swear anywhere in this.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't know.
Well, I'm not that type of guy unless I
Get angry.
put it in good context, that is.
Okay. All right, cheers.
Where you going? Oh,
I'm just calling him up right now.
You don't have to worry about the pink in your face.
no,
The lighting here sucks. This is like moonlight.
moonlighting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Meaning, if we go anywhere in the afternoon, which I don't think we're going anywhere for the rest of the day.
I really don't want to do anything. I think the only thing I want to do is wash off the car.
So I can do nails and that kind of stuff while you're on
I
here.
want to take that pollen off.
You know, I want to relax in the backyard, with
It's
the
like-
drink and have music.
There's a
and
lot of
relax.
pollen.
It'll be nice for a little later. We can be in the backyard, right?
It's nice day now.
No, I don't. It'll be warmer. I like it. I'm a warm girl. I like it hot. You know that.
How's the sun out there for the tomatoes?
It's not on it yet.
No?
It would be if you put it in the corner.
Where? What corner? In the back corner? Oh, want to push it over there? Try to get it as much sun as we can. Yeah, could you call your father for $1 million? No.
All right. I'm ready whenever you guys are.
All right, I am ready.
All right. Before we move on, I got my 3 kick-ass producers on the phone today. Slugs, Riley, and Lexi. Say what's up to John Red Shea.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing? How you guys doing in this pandemic we have?
They're all scattered all over the country right now. And so real quick, did you get totally torched by the sun yet? Because
I
Go ahead.
have a little bit, if you could see.
Well, every year I think like, oh no, this is the year I'm gonna tan okay. Because I'm a ginger too. Look.
Yeah.
And every year I'm like, no, this year I'm gonna be all right. I'm grown up. We're gonna be okay. And I take one step outside, absolutely just peanut brittle torched.
Of course. When I was a kid, I used to, in Southie, when I went to the beach, down in Carson Beach, my mother would be yelling at me, make sure you get some sunblock on. I'd never put the sunblock on. I'd come home with blisters on my back. Yeah, so that Irish skin, you know?
So what do you apply now, like SPF 5000?
Yeah, exactly. No, I try to just stay with a 30.
A smooth 30. Yeah, I heard that if it's over 30, it's not even effective.
I heard that too. That's why I go with the 30. And I just keep reapplying it, of course.
Now, do you still go to Southie beaches?
I really don't go to the beach around here. If I go to the beach, I'm down in Miami, kid, down in South Beach.
Oh, you're balling out.
Oh yeah, exactly. We only live once, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I went to Miami once, and like when you go there, you feel like you're the brokest person in the entire city.
Oh, I know.
Because the flash is crazy. They got like $100,000 cars.
Yeah, it's like going to Beverly Hills, you know?
Well, before we move on, hey, thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Can you just give a quick synopsis of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name's John Red Shea. I wrote the book Rat Bastards, and it's South Boston based, and it's I used to be with Whitey Bulger in the Irish Mafia, and I did 12 years in prison without giving anybody up, and Whitey knew about the investigation that was going on at the time, and he never told me, and he used me as a sacrificial lamb.
Well, you also wrote another book besides Rat
I did.
Bastards.
I also wrote a young adult book, which is called A Kid from Southie, and it's loosely based off of Rat Bastards, but it's, like I said, loosely, but it's a twist in the end of that book, and I mean, I'm proud of that book as well as Rat Bastards. And Rat Bastards became a New York Times bestseller, and Mark Wahlberg wrote the introduction to it, so, which I'm very grateful for. Mark's a hell of a guy.
I know, and he played your buddy Mickey Ward in a movie.
I know.
Well, real quick, we were on the phone for everyone who was listening. John and Mickey used to be buddies growing up, and they boxed together. Can you kind of explain what you guys were doing, like when you were like, what was it, 13, 14?
So the first time me and Mickey encountered each other, and when we were very young, we were 13 years of age, and it was in Lowell, in his hometown, at the boys club, and it was for the Silver Mittens, and we met in the finals of the Silver Mittens, and he beat me by a decision. So, okay, I never forgot about it, if you will. And so years later, we met again. We met again as older in the amateurs, because we were juniors back then. And every Monday night at the Harborway House in Lynn, which is not there anymore, as you come over the bridge from Revere, they would have boxing matches. And we were young at that time and training and boxing, and it was a great forum for us to go to every Monday and look forward to, you know, from all the training that you're doing in the gym all the time, you know? So you're always hungry as a kid. I can't wait. So this particular evening, Monday, they matched me with Mickey.
And how old are you at this time? Like 16, 17?
Yeah, yep, exactly. So they matched me up, me and Mickey together. And my trainer, Tommy Connors, who's a character, he says, hey, go over and tell Mickey you haven't forgot about it when you were younger for the finals of the Silver Mittens. You haven't forgot that he beat you, and you're not, it ain't happening tonight. I said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to conserve my energy, you know, because that wasn't my style anyway to do that. So he kept up with it, and I says, fine, I'll go and do it. So I went over. Mickey's getting his hands wrapped by his stepbrother, Dickie, and he got some people sitting around him, you know, and they're all relaxed. I walk over, I look down at Mickey, and I say, hey, Mickey, I said, I haven't forgotten that you beat me in the Silver Mittens by a decision. I said, well, tonight you're not going to do that. Tonight I'm kicking your ass. So Mickey looking at me real cool and collective. And as I'm walking away, I hear him say to his buddies, that guy's from Southie, he's crazy. I bursted out laughing. So now I go back and I go, shit, I just told Mickey I'm going to kick his ass tonight. That means I got to kick his ass. I'm a man of my word. I got to do what I got to do. So I lie down and I get some rest before I wrap my hands.
And real quick, was Mickey known as a prominent fighter back then, kind of like
Oh,
you?
we both were. We both were. Yeah, we were both champions, as a matter of fact, in weight divisions. Yeah. Yeah, even as juniors, we were champions, not just in the amateurs.
So
Yeah,
this was
we
like a
both-
big match, like you two facing off was kind of a big.
Yeah, at that time it was, yeah, because we were two top fighters in New England, from New England. So that said, I'm a man of my word. I got to go out and do what I got to do, right? So the bell rang for the first round. I went right at Mickey. I held nothing back, just no feeling out or anything like that. No jabs, right to the power, right hand, left hook. And I brought the fight to him.
Did you land it?
And,
The first one?
Excuse me?
Did you land the first two punches?
I went right at him. Yeah, I was the first to land. And then, because I put the pressure right on him, he had no choice but to fight back, of course. And so we were going at it, and we're going really good at it with power punches right off the bat. Kind of like two pit bulls going at it, if you will. So the bell rang, but we didn't hear the bell, and we didn't really care about the bell at that time because we were so indulged and so ferocious at the time in the fight.
Kept swinging.
We kept on swinging. The referee jumped in finally and pulled us apart and disqualified both of us right then and there. And so I say to Mickey, when I see him, I go, hey, Mickey, who's the only guy out of your whole career, from amateurs to juniors to professional, who's the only guy in your whole career you ever get disqualified from? He just laughs. He said,
That's you,
Johnny. I said, so I hold that honor. I said, being disqualified against you.
I know we should get the rematch all organized, and we'll do it at the old Suffolk Downs.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Mickey's we're good friends. He's a great guy.
Now, were some of those boxing days back then, did you adapt some of those moments into a Kid from Southie? Because you talk a lot about fights and that. How real was Kid from Southie? Was it all personal experience?
It was personal experience, and like I said, it's loosely based off of Rap Bastards, if you will. And you know, A Kid from Southie, you know, is a really I think it's a real good book for young adults. And you can get it on audio. Audio is the best. I actually love it on audio. Listen to it.
You call me a sped man? I thought it was good for my age. I'm 24.
There you go. It's good for everyone.
And I like the narrator did a good job with the voices, I thought.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. You know, he had a pretty good tone, and he emphasized pretty good also. Yeah.
So after you wrote Rap Bastards, were you like, okay, there are some moments in my life that I wasn't able to express in that, especially when I was an adolescent. So I want to put that into another book.
Yeah, I wanted to do something different, A, and B, I wanted to do something where it would help young adults. in them type of circumstances in this inner city, if you will. And as I talk about it, being the young Irish kid from the Irish town, and then liking this Hispanic girl, which was kind of frowned upon, if you will,
Was it Angelique? That was her name?
Angelique. So that said, as I talk about it, even in the book, and how the buddy says to him, you're a Catholic Irish kid. What's your mother gonna think we're bringing her home? So I wanted to show the difference in the realness and what it was like at that time, and probably still to some certainty in today's era, unfortunately, and what's happened just recently, as we know, with this poor guy dying in Minneapolis.
Well, you talk a lot about in the book about mentors. Like, I mean, that curveball at the end where the trainer was like getting with the mom, and then like the mob boss ended up being his dad. Are those real things that had happened to you growing up?
No, I had put that those were
Spoiler
my
alert! Spoiler alert,
those,
everybody.
those are the things where my writing skills and my thought had come into place in changing things around. Yes. Yep.
And so, when you were writing, especially some of the characters, like the best friend, was he Tommy Connors? Was that the best friend?
No, Tommy Con. No, it wasn't Tommy Connor. It was Tommy. Now I'm blank
Yeah.
now. Myself, my own writing, right?
Well, Liam was the mob boss, and then there was
Right.
Lily, who was the right hand guy.
Right.
It was Tommy. It was definitely Tommy.
Tommy. Yeah.
There's too many Irish guys, man.
Exactly. So anyway, now my mind is at loss now too. So I'm having a brain
Yeah,
lapse.
no, I hear you. So when I was reading it, I mean, again, I am not a big reader, and I actually really, really enjoyed the book. Like, you're gonna catch me. I don't know if you know what Spark Notes are, but was kind of my college career. Look up everything on Spark Notes, man. Just look it up. But I was really fascinated because growing up, I was really anger management too. Were you big in anger management growing up?
Oh, forget about it. I still am, unfortunately. I've of course I've grown up from that a lot, but not totally. I still have anger management problems. Absolutely. I have to catch myself. I have to control myself. That's just my makeup, and unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And nobody's perfect, and I work at it every day.
It's a very Irish thing, which a lot of people don't understand. It's very genetic.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I really had a real anger management problem when I was a young kid. I think a lot to do with it because it was a laid thing, if you will. My mom was very, very strict, and she had a temper on her that was unbelievable. And so I faced that when I had done something wrong, and I faced it with her total power. And that said, also growing up in Southie at that time, it wasn't, it was a good place, but it was a tough place to grow up. Nobody, if you were thin skinned, then you weren't going to make it too well, um, you had to defend yourself, in the street and stuff, and at times, and it was like the old school days.
Now, were you one of the anger management types who was like, were you short tempered, or did you bottle it up and just kind of snap?
No, I was short tempered. Yeah. But sometimes I would be short tempered most of the time, but sometimes I'd bottle it up, and then because I'm trying to control myself, and then that's it. So, but thank God, I'm older, and in the sense that I'm able to control myself a lot better as an adult.
Now, Does it feel like at this point in your life, like you lived like 3 separate lives? Is that how it feels to you, or?
You know, I just had this conversation with my girlfriend Laurie, and by the age of 21, I felt like I've already lived 2 lives, believe it or not. Yeah.
And now you're what, like in your like late 40s, 50s? You look like you're 46.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, you just took almost 9 years off my age. So thank you. Yep.
So how many lives do you feel like you live now at 55?
I don't know. I don't know, at least 3 now. Anyhow, you know. Yeah, at least 3. And I mean, you know, from the struggles that I went through and through prison and 12 years of doing time and you know, and getting out of jail and then, you know, turning my life around and
See, and we'll get to it a little bit later, but when people talk about going to prison for an elongated period of time, they act like 12 years is just 12 years. That's such a long time.
yeah, 12 years is 12 years. And, you know, especially at the time when I went, at my time, the only one who had a cell phone were rich people. So of course, you know, the guys who had money like myself, Whitey, and the other guys in the crew, if you will, we all had them. If you ever seen the movie Wall Street with Michael Douglas, those old phones, mobile phones, those phones were like $2,000 at the time to buy.
Really?
At
Those,
that
those
time. Oh
Nokia
yeah,
phones?
it was a white one. It was a Motorola.
Was it a flip phone?
No, it was a one piece. Yeah, yeah. And then they had the Radio Shack one. It looked like a brick and military type of, you know. So yeah, I had them all. Yeah, at a young age.
So
And so when I get out of prison, you know, and computers, I didn't know what a computer was. I mean, by the time I went to prison and did time and all that, especially, you know, a laptop. I mean, laptop, what's that? You know. So when I get out of prison, and I talk about this in Rat Bastards, that it was really weird for me because I hear all these people talking, and and they got, some people they got phones, and I'm looking, I'm going, those people following us? I hear them talking. What, you know? Because I didn't realize that phones were that, you know. I mean, I knew there were phones out there, but I didn't know they were that abundant, if you will.
mhm.
You know, that everyone had one, you know, a cell phone. So it kind of freaked me out, to be honest with you, because I thought it was law enforcement following me still.
Was that like a total adjustment for you getting used to using a phone and a laptop?
I don't think so, because I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think it's because of my boxing and growing up and adjusting and the things that I had faced growing up. But I adjust to things that I've never have faced before pretty rapidly and pretty easily, believe it or not. I remember when I was being driven by the U.S. Marshals to a new location that they were bringing me, and it was a brand new place. They wanted to put me there to say that they could hold me there and give me a fair trial and stuff. So I was new to opening this place. I was one of the first guys to go there, and it was in Middleton, Mass. And
And you came from where?
I came from Plymouth.
Okay.
I was in Plymouth and holdover. And so I went to Middleton, and when I got there, the guard was really strict. He told me, "You got to sit down." You heard? I said, "Excuse me." Soon as, see, there's the anger coming out,
I can
right?
see it in your face
I
right
mean,
now.
really, I said, "Excuse." Well, I said it in front of the U.S. Marshals. The U.S. Marshals treating me like really, really good, because they knew I demanded respect. And when I demand respect, I give respect. If you don't give me respect, I'm not giving you respect. It's that simple. There's no gray area, you know? when it comes to respect. So the guard at the time didn't show any respect to me, and I had a few choice words for him. And the U.S. Marshals are there, and they go, they're gonna get used to you real quick. They're gonna know you real quick. Sure enough, that officer did not press the issue. That guard, I should say, and he acted accordingly the way he should, like a gentleman. And because I was doing nothing wrong, he just wanted to show a force, and I guess he didn't know what kind of force he was dealing with. On the other side, on the flip side,
Have you always kind of had an issue with like authoritarian figures, like people like telling you what to do?
yes, because my mother was always yelling at me to do something, and if I didn't do it, part of my friend, she'd beat the shit out of me. So, and that's how it was back then. You know, trust me, it was not easy getting away with something with my mom back then. I'll tell you that. And it could be it could be something small. So yeah, she was very, very tough, but she had a hard job raising, 4 kids and no father and working, and she was under stress every day, and it's understood. But she was also a loving mom in the sense that she made sure we had a roof over our head, we were fed, and we had clothing. Was it the best of everything? No, of course not. We were poor, you know.
What's interesting is the mom and a kid from Southie is very much the opposite. She was just a major alcoholic, and like the
But
Aiden
but
has to
all,
like rescue her from throwing up on herself. And
right, right, exactly. So, you know, that's where the writing comes in, and you know.
so you're this like semi-pro, really promising boxer. When do you start dipping into like and you talked about in Rap Asses a little bit, but for those who haven't read, when do you start dipping into like kind of going down to Miami and like thinking about selling drugs?
So I wasn't really dipping into that. I went into that. It was like diving
Full
into a
speed.
pool. Like diving into a pool immediately, and making that big splash, if you will. So while I was boxing here, I was my first professional fights were in Los Angeles, and I fought at the Olympic Auditorium and stuff like that. And then I fought Reseda, California, um, and that was my first professional fight. And so anyway, I came back from California, and I started training here, and I started training with Vinny Paz and stuff like that. In Rhode Island, I ride down there, but at the same time, I needed a few dollars in my pocket. So I started dabbling into the with the guys in the neighborhood that were running things. And then eventually, I started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I started climbing that ladder. And of course, I had a few parallels going on at the time, 2 at that time. But as time went on, I had boxing and I had the drugs, and everybody was a weekend partier at that time. So weekends were money makers for the guys, and so I learned through them, and then eventually I became their boss.
Now, how old are you when things start getting bigger and bigger?
I started, geez, I want to say 20 years old. Yeah,
You're
20 years
young,
old.
man.
Yeah, 20 years old, where I was getting, yeah, doing big things. Yeah. And driving to Miami and setting deals up in Miami and buying the kilos of cocaine and all that stuff. Yeah.
Now,
And
what
and also, and at that time, eventually becoming one of the lead guys in the organization for Whitey and his that he was getting paid from. One of the guys got kicked out, and when he got kicked out, I was put in his place. And that guy's since dead. He actually testified against Whitey. He died of cancer. And they had me on the list to go to testify against Whitey, but I had done so many interviews on CNN and stuff saying, I'm not going to testify. And if I have to go back to prison, I will for contempt, if you will. And I said, but who knows? Maybe I'll change my mind and testify. And I don't think it would be good for either side. So I kind of played that hand, if you will. And my lawyer, Tony Cardinelli at the time, called the head prosecutor and said, you don't need him, and you should take him off your list, and you have enough people doing what you need or what you want. And he's not that type of guy, and he's a bit of a maverick. And that was exactly the words that were used in court by the guy who was originally the boss of the drug organization for Whitey. And he talked about how they recruited me. And
What was his name?
His name was Shea too. His last name was Shea. His name was Billy Shea. And I don't mention,
relation?
no relation. And I don't mention his name in the book for Rap Acid. Some names I changed because I didn't want to give anybody up because nobody was convicted for those crimes at that time. So I just changed the names, you know. But people who I could talk about legitimately without them getting hurt, of course, I used their name.
So
He called me a maverick, is what my point is. He said, yeah, we recruited Red Shea, and Red Shea was was quite a maverick in his own way. So I just had that attitude of being me and doing what I'm gonna do, and that's it. And not caring a lot, which wasn't, some ways wasn't too smart for sure as a young man. But I was trying to prove myself. That's the whole thing. That's why I was such a maverick. And Whitey took advantage of that. He definitely did. He actually said one time to my boxing trainer, he said, you know, most people are trying to break out of jail. This young guy's trying to break in. That was prior to him. Probably about a year prior to me getting recruited. Yeah.
So when you say you wouldn't testify, wasn't that so weird for you? Because you coming off 12 years of just being stuck in the can, you were totally willing to go back to jail?
Because it was my beliefs and my integrity that I didn't, I was gonna honor what I believe in. And some people that's a great question, because some people say, well, everybody else ratted, why didn't he rat? He's stupid. No, I'm not stupid. I have beliefs, I have integrity. And if there's a soldier out there that's fighting in a foxhole, I can guarantee you I'm one of the guys that love to have in a foxhole with them, because I wouldn't run. I just wouldn't.
So was it hurtful to you when some of the other guys in the organization who were cooperating with the FBI weren't as loyal as you?
Well, listen, they wanted me to testify against Whitey and Stevie Fleming, and I wouldn't do it. And when I found out that they were informants with the FBI, and that they knew what was going on about the investigation against me and the other people, and they basically knew all about it. And so hindsight's 2020, and things were popping off in my head, and conversations I had with Whitey, and saying he knew all the time. He let me go down. He let me take the heat, the fall. And of course, I was the youngest guy at that position. So he basically set me up and put me in that position, because he knew I was young, and he knew, well, if he gets time, he'll get so much time, but he's still young. And that was his thought process, obviously. And he used his own people to save his own soul, of course, which makes him what? King Rat.
So was it, did you feel hurt at the time? Because the
Well,
way you
I'll
kind of
tell you,
describe it in Rat Bastards is like there was a real loyalty between everybody and it was really a brotherhood at a certain point.
I'll tell you what. I honored him. I honored him, and I was willing to give my life. That's just the way it is. Growing up on the streets of Southie, you just don't talk. You don't say anything. You take your lumps and bumps. Even if someone else can't, that's what we're taught. We were taught, and that was basically it. So I was willing to do whatever it took, and I was threatened with, uh, 25 to life in prison. And like I say in the book, when I was being threatened and interrogated, I said, when they said 25 years or more, 40 years or whatever it was, it's been so long now. I said, it doesn't get any worse than life, does it?
Aren't you glad you're out now?
Thank God. I thank God every day. Thank God I'm outside and have a beautiful girlfriend and doing well.
So when you were, just a quick rewind, when you were coming up and you said you were getting bigger and bigger, was it a rush for you because you had never really touched money like that? Was that like,
It's funny because I'll be honest with you. It's almost like being, for me, the best way I can describe this, it's almost like being a drug addict or being an addict, whether it's drugs or alcohol or whatever, any type of addict, if you will. I should not just say a drug addict. I should say any addict, to be fair. It's like being an addict. And even today, I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's like, wow, you get that urge. You want that strength, that power, and that money, and all that back, and it just, yeah, it was definitely, it was, at times it was definitely a adrenaline high for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
and you still get it now?
I do, but I control myself. Yeah, I do. I'll be honest with you. It's like I said, it's like being an addict. But I know it's not the right thing. It's not the right thing, and I've written about that. And I'm lucky to be where I am, and I'm fortunate, and I'm blessed, and I recommend everybody to take not the easy way, but the right way.
See, I've never been a drug dealer in my life. Um, except one time I tried to sell an eighth of weed and I did it unsuccessfully and I had to give it back to the guy I bought it from. So I have no clue what that's like, but I do know what it's like building something, especially what we have going on here. So I can imagine that when things start moving for you, even though it's drugs, it's just like it's exciting. Like
Yeah, well,
every day is a new something, right?
it's like building a business. Actually, you're absolutely right about that. So you start out with with grams, and you graduate to ounces, and so forth and so on, and half ounces, and half a kilos, and then kilos, and then multiple kilos, and customers and people who work for you, and distributing, and yeah, it's a business. It really is. It's not the right business, of course, but it is a business. It is business minded, and I had a big business. I did. When you're traveling to Florida, and traveling back with kilos of cocaine in the car that are multiple kilos, hundreds of thousands of dollars of kilos, monthly.
A lot of miles on that car, man.
A lot of money.
I'm sure. So when you would pick up from Miami, you would bring it back to Southie, and then your drugs would probably be all over Southie and Boston. I mean, coke was a rich
I
person's drug.
Yeah, well, for us back in that time, it was a weekend drug. It wasn't like, you know, everybody, it wasn't, you weren't on the damn thing all week long, you know? Maybe some people were, but that said, it was a party drug at that time because it was, you know, 80s and late 80s and early 90s and stuff, you know, it was all party stuff, you know? So, most of the time it was a weekend drug and there was a lot of cocaine being snorted on the weekend.
Have you seen the movie Blow?
Yes. Yeah.
What is it similar? Is that like fantasized or?
It's similar. Yeah, it's similar. And a matter of fact, I met Johnny Depp, hung out with him, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Different hairstyle and Black Mask compared to Blow, though.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
Yeah.
what's your favorite Southie movie of all time?
I don't have a favorite Southie movie. I mean, to be honest with you, about Southie, I don't know. I don't particularly care for them movies because I lived the real deal. I was the real deal. So I'm like, this ain't the real deal to me, you know? So
So when you saw Departed, were you like, this is bullshit?
well, I was a part of Departed, if you will. I worked with Mark Wahlberg on set and stuff like that, and gave my input to him for his character and stuff like that. And it was a great experience, and I thanked him so much for allowing me to do that. And I learned so much from it. Also, it was a blast. We had a great time, and again, Mark was a little bit of a mentor to me in that sense because I was pretty much freshly home, not too long after I get out of prison, and I was still on probation, and I was able to travel with him with request to the probation department, and one day Mark says to me when we're walking in New York, he said, Johnny, he said, just want you to know this, that you're a winner. I looked at him, I says, what do you mean? He says, you're home, he said, and you're not in that life anymore. And you did your honorable thing. He said, you served your time for the things that you've done wrong. He said, and that's an honorable man. Yeah. So at that time, he was a bit of a mentor, if you will, and I appreciated that immensely from him. And he was very good to me.
I can imagine coming 12 years out of prison, your confidence is low, and then you got someone major like that just bigging you up. Must have just been a huge boost.
Yeah, I mean, my confidence wasn't really that low because, but it was, I should say it was because I was getting a lot of offers while I was in prison, believe it or not, to tell my story. And I just wasn't ready to do that. And as a matter of fact, Mark wanted to come visit me 2 years prior to that. And I denied the visit from him. I wasn't ready to speak because I never spoke. I didn't speak about anything like that. And I wasn't ready to do that. And it's funny because when I decided to do it, I did some research, thought about it, talked to friends and stuff like that. And I just thought, why not tell my story instead of someone else telling my story? And I wanted it to be the real deal.
Is it tough for you now to still like do media and talk about it?
No, not anymore. I've opened up pretty good. Like when we started writing Rat Bastards, I was working construction and I was working like 12, 14-hour days in construction. And then afterwards I'd go with my friend Fran Hurley, who was one of my
Shout out to Fran for making this happen.
Yeah. And great guy, great friend, another guy who I look up to because of being like a mentor, taking me in and making sure that, I had a life that was on the right path, if you will. So that said, we started writing the book, and we met with publishers and stuff like that after the fact in New York, and Mark was in the meetings with us. He went as far as to meetings and helped push the book for me, which was unheard of for an actor of his caliber to go out of his way for 5 hours, 5 hours out of his way. I mean, it was amazing that he cared that much, because he wanted to see me do well and change my life and do the right thing. And so a lot of gratitude. But so we started writing the book, me and Franny at his office after I worked. And Franny would say, it's so funny. Franny would say, trying to get something out of you, anything out of you, asking you any type of question is like pulling teeth. It's like pulling teeth, he says. So I laughed about it. I said, well, I'm so closed-mouthed. I said, what do you want me to tell you? So eventually I started coming out of my cocoon, my shell, and we started making some progress. And then we went into the meetings, and Harper and Collins ended up taking the book on, and I got represented by 2 agents, one in Los Angeles, the first one, and then a New York agent for the book. And that was at the Endeavor agency that Mark belonged to at the time, which is no longer merged with William Morris. So that said, we went forward with the book, and they wanted somebody of experience that has written before, and we brought a guy named Michael Coffey, who did a fantastic job with us. So we all made a good team together, and we wrote a New York Times bestseller.
Now, when you were peeling back the stories with Fran, was it therapeutic because you had bottled it up for so long? Like, dude, I lived
Well,
the
it's funny.
craziest streak ever.
Great question. Great question. I'm not a psychologist or a therapist, so so I'm going to put it my way. It was not therapeutic. It was not therapeutic. At times I was emotional, mentally, and angry. But that said, I guess to get to that higher place and better place, you need to go through that, if you will, I imagine. I mean, it helped me in that sense to get through it in that sense by fighting through all the anger and those barriers, if you will, instead of suppressing them.
Do you ever have moments now where you're like, wow, I've really lived a one-on-one life? Like, there's no one can really tell this story.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, and thank you for that. Yeah.
Wild, man. So what was it like when you started realizing the feds were on you? Were you just petrified? Like, oh my God.
I want to tell you, I was very well schooled in the streets when it came to that. And I would ask Whitey about different cars and people that were in them cars, and he would tell me who they were. He would tip me off. So Whitey played both sides really well, and all along, and he was even playing me very well, telling me how to handle myself and what not to do and how to do it and stuff like that. He was schooling me in doing that. So I was so well versed in spotting agents, if you will, um, undercover agents. I was so well versed. At one time, I had 7 cars following me at once through Southie. And then one car had, they had a switch obviously in the car where it was in the evening, they had 2 headlights, and then they must turn one headlight on only. So when I look behind me, I'd see only one headlight, so maybe that ain't the car that's still following me, which it was. But I had a penchant on catching them. And they actually asked me how we had to bring agents in from around the country to follow you because you spotted every one of our agents. How did you do that? It was just a knack that I instinct that I had, and I concentrated on it, and I concentrated on a lot of things, if you will, to protect myself. And yeah, I mean, there were times when a guy went by the store, he was an agent, and I was standing with a friend of mine. I goes, that guy's an agent. He's working at at the time, Newman Flanagan's office, which is organized crime office, and he's working in conjunction with the DEA. And he goes, no. I said, oh yeah, you want me to prove you wrong? Excuse me. I ran up to the car. Excuse me. The guy stopped. I said, and I named him. I named his name, and I said,
terrified.
I named his name to him, and I said, and I told him where he was from. I said, isn't that true? And he looked at me. He was angry. He goes, you're a smart guy, Red. So the guy I was standing with was shocked. So I had a penchant on I don't know how, but I did. And I had a sense of who was an officer and who wasn't.
It's really interesting hearing these stories when it seems like everything was happening in Southie, but Southie is so small. Like,
I
did
know.
everyone know everybody?
Well, to be honest with you, it was at the time, if you think about Boston in its sense, Southie was the biggest Irish enclave in Boston. Southie's bigger than Charlestown, which would be that was predominantly Irish, right? Charlestown. So yeah, I mean, Southie was the biggest Irish community enclave. Yeah.
Now, at the time, did you like the clout that came with being associated? Like the attention that came with it?
Of course. Because people showed respect, and just as well as they did with Whitey, they showed him respect. Even if they didn't like him, they still showed him the respect, right? But I mean, I've had people contact me back then. They had problems with kids around the house, hanging around the house, being noisy and stuff like that or whatever. And homeowners and stuff, property owners. And I would drive by and I'd go, hey, fellas, too much noise around here. Do me a favor, hang out somewhere else. They go, absolutely, no problem. So I had people in the neighborhood that would reach out like that, and if they needed a favor like that, I would do that for them, absolutely. And I learned that through Whitey, of course.
Now, how did girls treat you back then when you're 20 and like you're like a known criminal? Did girls like it, or were girls put off by it?
I mean, I don't, there was probably some girls. I don't know, because I never really, I didn't really notice or cared about that, to be honest with you. But I would imagine that, yeah, there was, there's plenty of girls out there like bad boys, right? So, call it like it is.
But you were like bad. You weren't just like, hey, like I got a leather jacket and a Harley. You were like really, you were
Yeah.
balling, man.
I know, but I like to be a little. I don't want to.
Lori's around the corner. She's listening.
Yeah, no, Laurie don't care. Laurie knows. She knows how much I love her. So no, but that said, yeah, I grew up and eventually became a boss. So yeah, I mean, and yeah, you know. It was it was an experience to say itself, and at times it was really good, and sometimes it wasn't, to be honest with you. Sometimes I'd say, I need to get out. I need to get out of this life. I've said that to myself prior to getting indicted, because I wasn't involved at the time with a young lady who I actually loved at the time, and I wanted to change my life, and I was thinking about it, and I wanted to go back to boxing, and I talk about this in the book, and I knew the heat was on and stuff, and Rat Bastards, and I had plenty of money, you know, so I was set to do whatever I wanted, actually, and have plenty of money to back me. And so I wanted to go back to boxing. I mentioned it to Whitey, and he told me no. He said, why? He said, why do you want to go get your head hit and boxed in and your brains and everything else? And a part of my French, but his exact words were, that's a dumb. Can I swear in this program?
You can swear.
Okay. I want to be polite here, but you know, at the time that his exact words were, that's for dumb fucking niggas. And, you know, he didn't know boxing like I did. I grew up boxing since the age of 5. And of course, I didn't like that response by any means. And so years later, after all this is would come out, now I understand. And at that time, I felt even then like, why is he saying that? Why is he, you know, he says, you're going to be on TV and boxing. People are going to see your face. And, you know, you want to keep a low profile. You want to keep, you know, making money. I'm saying to myself, it just didn't, the vibe for me when he said that to me at that time, I knew something wasn't right. I just knew it then. But I was, you know, I didn't know for sure. I mean, and he was the boss, right? And I was showing my loyalty and my respect and, if you will, my love.
I don't want to devote too much of the episode to this, but there's Southie people. A stereotype for Southie is that it's like systemically racist for however long. Is that kind of something you grew up around?
Of course. I mean, I grew up in when it was forced busing days. So when I see the rioting now, this horrific rioting that's happening now in the last 5 days with the death of this horrible death of this man. I seen those things. I seen it. I seen them when I was a young man in Southie and the rioting and stuff that had taken place, and but on a racial note. And so I grew up in that. Yeah, you know, I know what it's like. Again, there's another layer of my life that I experienced that many haven't. But it was a sad time to be honest with you. When I talk about race in prison, yes, you have your different races and stuff like that in prison, of course, and your cliques and all that, you know. And but for me, when I talk about in Rat Bastards, I talked about race. For me, it was always about not color, a creed, race. It was about being a man and not being an informant and taking your punishment for the things that you did wrong and accepting that and honoring that and not putting that on someone else's shoulders to lessen your wrongs. And so I honored people like that, and I still do. And I don't care what race, creed, or color they are.
Can you just, for those who are uninformed, because we have a pretty younger audience, can you just explain what the forced busing is? I know what it is, but
Yeah, forced busing was implemented by the federal government, and a judge actually enforced it, and his name was Judge Garrity at the time. And they took black kids from black neighborhoods, because back then when I grew up, it was, it wasn't mixed neighborhoods like it pretty much is now. Even Roxbury has the mixed portions. So it was old school. It was like you would watch a movie from back in the day, where it's different Italian neighborhoods, Irish neighborhoods, black neighborhoods. So they started taking the black kids or the minorities and bringing them to the white neighborhoods, and mixing the black and white together to go to school together. And at that time, it was like oil and water, if you will. I mean, because everybody was like, hey, we have our own community, and this is who we are, and I get that, and in some ways, it's good that everyone gets along and everyone can, live with each other now, then together and around each other, which is a beautiful thing. But in some ways, it's a loss, where you don't have your authentic whole Italian neighborhood, your authentic whole entire Irish neighborhood, your whole entire Jewish neighborhood. Those authentic feeling neighborhoods, if you will. And Southie's no longer like that, of course, as we know.
I would say the north end's still pretty Italian, right?
Yes, it is. Yep, it is, but not totally. There are a lot of there's
Not
a
like
lot
it
of
was.
no, not even close. Not even close. Trust me. But it's still pretty good. But they do that is because they I mean, they do it because of that's how they make their money down there in them businesses.
So that's actually a great pivot. What do you think about the change in Southie now? Because like all my friends graduate college, and the first place they move is Southie. It's like a young person's town now.
Oh yeah, it's really there's a lot of young people that are living in now, and it's actually come a long way, Southie, and it's I'll tell you, it's becoming gentrified, that's for sure, and to say the least. And I've actually, like, even on the waterfront, whoever thought in the waterfront that you would see all these big beautiful buildings and stuff, which I've been a part of, by the way, working in construction. And I never thought in my day how full circle it would be for me to come back into my neighborhood and to be able to build buildings, and major buildings, and in my own neighborhood that I grew up in, and that I had drove the streets of, and ran and walked and everything else, and ate down on the waterfront years back in some of the restaurants.
So do you like the change in Southie?
I do. I think it's come a long way. I think, I mean, to be honest with you, I like old school stuff too. I like originality, authentic stuff, if you will, because a lot of young people, they never experienced that in their life, the real original authentic stuff, and of a neighborhood. And I grew up in that, and that's who I am, and how I grew up, and what made me who I am today.
Now you kind of talked about it in a kid from Southie, but is how Southie was structured back then? Was it that the wealthiest people lived at the top of the hill and the projects were at the bottom? Is that true?
There's something like that. Yeah, pretty close. There was a lower end and an upper end, and the upper end was the city point, and the people who lived up there were a little more, had a few more dollars than the people who lived down the lower end. Yep.
Now, where was everyone? Where were you hanging out when you were associated? Was it right on that rotary right there where that fish market is?
Yeah. So
You know
I
what I'm
lived.
talking about, right?
Yeah, I lived right across the park in the projects, and it was Old Colony projects. So I was running around, I was hanging in out there when I was a kid. We all, we had our own little group that we hung out with and stuff like that. And we'd wait sometimes on the corner, and there was a place called Bell's Market that's even still there. And uh, uh, you know, we had no money, and of course it was the projects, and we would wait, and we'd see a truck pull up full of cigarettes and cartons of cigarettes, and soon as the guy got out of the truck and he went into the store, we'd open up the back of the truck and take some cartons of cigarettes and then hide them and then wait till he's gone and then go back and sell the cigarettes for less than what they would have got them for. So that was one of the ways that we made a few bucks as young kids.
You flip.
So, I mean, you know, if you think about it, it's old school, you know, I mean, yeah, it's like back in the day stuff, you know, good stuff, you know, OG stuff.
Now, when you look back, did you always kind of know you had a sales ability, like when you were younger?
You know, I never knew how much of a sales ability I ever had, but you're right about that because I started selling even weed at the age of 15. I mean, I was selling bags of weed and then, you know, even prior to that, there were people that come in and look for weed and to come into projects and drive in and say, hey, look at some weed, you know, like suburbanites and stuff like that, or the Newton kids or something like that, you know, if you will. And I'd go, oh yeah, I'll be right back down. Of course, I had no weed, but I go up in the house into the projects. I'd say, you just wait here. I go up there and I get a bag of oregano and I throw the oregano in it in a baggie, and then I'd fold it up real nicely, and then I'd say, all right, hey, you gotta get going. The cops are gonna go, they're all around here. And I'd pass them the bag of oregano and take their money and say, boy, these people are real dumb from the suburbs, aren't they?
And they probably claimed they got so high.
Yeah, yeah, they probably didn't want to admit that they fell for that.
Did you ever, I don't really know how the cocaine game works, but did you ever break it off with baking soda or something like that? Or like some sort of like powdery substance?
Break it off? You mean?
Well, you mix it, right? So it's not as pure?
Yeah. So you mean cutting it?
I've never done coke.
It's
John.
called cutting the cocaine. It's called cutting the cocaine. And please, this is not a tutorial by any means. I don't want anybody thinking that, you know, they can go out and learn how to, they're learning here and I'm teaching them how to do the cocaine business, because that's not what I'm doing. But you asked me a question, I'm glad to answer that question, if you will.
We're not trying to indict anybody.
Yeah, we're not trying to teach anybody here like that. Yeah, that's not us. So, but I will answer that. So, what I used to use in cutting it was an isotol, and it basically it's like it's kind of like a sugary taste, but it's also like a supplement. And I used to get it at the GNC store, and they would sell it in jars and stuff like that. And of course, I'd buy every one of them that they had, if you will, and I'd use that to cut the cocaine. And basically, it was like a vitamin supplement, if you will. So it wasn't harmful, but the cocaine was. So I was trying to be a little healthy, if you will.
And was there a benefit in using the isotol over a baking soda? Is it just because it's not
Yeah,
as good for
baking
you?
soda is no good. Baking soda burn your nose and all that stuff like that. You didn't with the isotols, you didn't. There was no burn or anything, and it didn't hurt you, if you will. Baking soda would be bad. But yeah, and then I would break it down in that sense, and that way, when you break it down with the inositol, you're not giving out, you know, they're not getting, at that time, they're not getting pure cocaine, and that's a good thing, because you don't want to kill anybody and have anybody die on you. I mean, you know, because then that would put a red flag and a bad thing on your shoulder then, you know, because then now you're going to put more heat on yourself. You're basically just trying to run a business, make money, and not watch anybody go down.
Now, one part that I talked about with the producers that was interesting is that you tried your own product a couple times, but you're like, this is not for me.
That's funny. That just come up today from my girlfriend. She says, so we were talking about that a little, touched upon that a little bit. And I said to her, I said, well, I tried it once and I tried it twice, but that second time that I tried it with professionals, if you will. These guys were pros at it. And as I call them. And of course, I was not, but it was my cocaine. and I supplied the cocaine, and we went out on a binging cocaine weekend. And when I tell you that we had more cocaine that we could have, we did. It was an never ending supply. I was so high that I didn't know how to handle myself. I thought I was going to commit suicide, to be honest with you. I thought everybody was watching me. I was so paranoid. I had no appetite. I couldn't drink. I couldn't eat. So I drank
Freaking out.
NyQuil. I drank NyQuil to try to come down, and that was my last time that I ever tried cocaine in my life. Thank
See,
God.
that's that Irish mania. So I'm the same way because when I smoke weed, I don't smoke weed anymore because I freak way out because there's something very genetic about Irish people in the OCD, and I'm sure you have a little bit of it too. But I could imagine if I did coke, I'd probably burn down all of Southie.
Oh yeah. Trust me, I was not myself. It was definitely a scary inner body, outer body, however you want to look at it, moment for me. And I was so high that it took me at least a day, a full day, 24 hours at least, I should say, to actually start to come back. That's how much cocaine I did. I'm lucky I wasn't dead.
That was at Miami coke.
Oh yeah, and pure, no cut, no isotol, no cut in it at all. Right off the brick. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hey, I just want to give my producers a chance to ask a question. That all right?
Of course.
Hey, let's start with Brendan.
Okay. Hey, John, I got a question about prison. I'm wondering, what is something you took away from prison that made you a better person? And also, what is one piece of prison reform that we can do today to make it a better place, somewhere that actually rehabilitates people?
So, great question, and thank you for answering that, for asking that. So that said, one of the things that I took away from prison is that when I found out about Whitey being an informant and stuff like that, and knowing that I gave my life to him and honored him, and not only him, but I honored the code, if you will. It was heart-wrenching, to be honest with you. And after that, I said to myself, and pretty instantly, because I think it's the fighter in me, because, at any second you could be hurt in a fight, and you need to know how to adjust to that immediately. So my boxing background helped me out a lot with that. And that said, so my loyalty was not to Whitey, but my loyalty was to myself now. So when I thought about my loyalty being to myself now, I thought about not giving someone the chance to not giving someone the chance to ever hurt me again in that sense, and to be in control of my own destiny in life, and knowing that that where I was hopefully, if I get the hell out of there, and that's how I thought, because it's prison. It was tough. Anything could happen in prison. I mean, you could have a quarrel and a beef in prison, and then all of a sudden, who knows how that might end up. You could end up hurt, or you could end up dead. And that said, that was the biggest thing I learned, that surviving, being true to myself now, honoring myself, and getting out of prison and doing the right thing. So that said, I don't think it gets any bigger than that, or better. Um, you know, the other thing is the reform part of it. Well, I'll tell you what, they have halfway houses and stuff like that, and that people go to. I was not allowed a halfway house for whatever reason. They said my record or my background and things in my background or whatever it might have been. I have no idea. That I was not allowed a halfway house, that I needed to leave prison from prison, which was fine with me. It was fine with me because I didn't want to go to a halfway house and be told what to do from somewhere else. I just wanted to finish my time out, walk out that door of that prison and say, and not look behind me at that prison, and not to have to listen to new rules somewhere else and have someone say to me, well, I'm in a halfway house. If you don't behave or if you don't follow the rules here, you're going back to prison. So for me, it was a blessing. They did me a favor. I'll stay to prison. I'll walk all the way to the door till my time is up, walk out that prison door, and then that's it. So the reform part of it is that they send people out into the new world, and there's nobody there for them, some of these people. And even though there's a halfway house, they tell you, well, you got to go get a job, and they force you to go get a job. But it's not easy for a person who's on still on a halfway house, which is like probation, but you're still in prison basically. And not many people are taken convicted. If you get a background of being, conviction, many people are taking them people on. Okay, let me go into the Apple store and try to get a job. Have you ever been convicted of a felon in the last 5 years or 10 years or whatever it might be? Of course, I just get out of prison. So how are they supposed to get a job? And how do we implement these people in changing their lives? That's why it was so wonderful that I was able to get in the union, construction union, because I didn't hold that over my head, A. And B, the other thing is that I got lucky and had the ability with guys like Mark Wahlberg and Fran Hurley, good people that showed me respect and honored me. And so my point is this, that to reform people isn't just reforming and sending them to prison and then sending them out the door and telling them, hey, go get a job. And you have to go look for a job. And if you don't come back with the information that you've been at these places, then you know what? You're in violation. That's wrong. That's wrong. There should be a program where they have businesses that they're dealing with businesses and saying, we're trying to implement these people back into society, and we want them to change their lives. Yes, they have backgrounds. Yes, they've committed crimes, but they paid their dues already. And we don't want people going back into that life again. We want to see them move forward and to get over those hurdles. And that's a big hurdle. Big hurdle for them to get over. So maybe there's a farm where these businesses, whether it be an Apple store or Starbucks, where they can go in and they can apply for a job, that they will take these people on, that they will honor these people that are trying to change their lives.
Well, there's a stigma with it,
Yeah,
the stigma
of course.
with felons, and yeah, that's a very, very interesting point. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Hey, Riley, why don't we have you ask a question next? It's Riley.
Hey, so you're very open about your past, and it's so interesting. I was wondering if you ever worry if it will catch up to you.
To what way and what? I don't understand. Actually, yeah.
I'll build on that for Riley. I think what she's trying to ask is, are you a believer in karma whatsoever?
So listen, That's a great question because I talk about that again in the end of the book of Rat Bastards, and I talk about my faith, and of course, being Irish, I'm predominantly Irish Catholics, right? And you know, I have people that say to me, you know, God's forgiving and stuff like that, and you paid your dues to society for the wrongs that you've done. But it's really not up to anybody, in my eyes. I mean, anybody could be kind and show empathy, but the opposite. But that's just an opinion of people who we are. If you have faith in God, the only time you'll know that, in my eyes, you know, is when my time is to be had off this earth. So that would be up to God to make that decision, nobody else, because there's no one bigger than God.
Do you still go to church?
I have gone to church. I used to go to church with Mark Wahlberg, especially when we were traveling around in New York and stuff like that, in Los Angeles. And Mark is an Advent Catholic, goes to church. And I don't go to church like that no more, but I still have my faith, and I believe in my Catholic faith. But no, I don't go to church like I should. And maybe that's something I'm going to be working on soon.
It's just boring sometimes, man, you know?
So, yeah. So the funny thing about it is you talk about church and being a Catholic, and, you know, I was away with a Catholic priest in prison, and he was sent there. He was from New York, and his name is, and I talk about him, Father Patrick Mahoney. And Maloney. And as a matter of fact, I just spoke with him a few weeks back, and I had a question for him, and he answered it. And I talked about maybe getting married in the cathedral someday. That would be magnificent for me to be able to walk down in a St. Patrick's Cathedral and honoring the one that I choose, Laurie, for her hand, if you will.
Big surprise, man.
Yeah, exactly. But he said, absolutely, can make that happen tomorrow, Johnny. And so, but the pandemic hit, and here we are. But there'll be time.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah, it'd be great. It'd be awesome. It will be awesome.
Something, and Lexi and Slugs, I'll get to you guys real quick, but something somewhat Catholic is a lot of Catholics believe in fate and destiny. When you were growing up, did you visualize your success, even though it was obviously illegal? Did you visualize that? Like, you knew you kind of had something in you? Is this how you kind of picture things going?
Funny you asked that, and that's a great question, because I've always imagined that that I would be successful at something, whether it would be boxing or even in the underworld and organized crime, because I always tried to strive in being the best at what I did and whatever I did, and whether that was boxing or in organized crime or just, you know, playing a regular sport, if you will, maybe even cooking a meal, just anything. I always want to be the best at it. And that's just who I am.
Competitive.
Not so much competitive. I just want to be the best at it, you know, and always do the best job. And that could be any job, man. I mean, it could be scrubbing a floor with the toothbrush and cleaning the mold off the tile. I mean, if I do it, I want to do it right. I want to make sure it's done right and do it the best I can.
Hey, Slugs, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. So I read the book, I Stealthy, and I really enjoyed it. And throughout the book, there are like a lot of lessons that the main character was learning, and a lot of lessons for the reader to take away from it. But I was wondering, what is the biggest lesson you want people who read Rat Bastards and A Kid from Stealthy to take away from your story?
Thank you for the question. Well, out of both of them, I wanted to show the real essence of that life, and for people to understand, the best way to do that is showing the real essence, right? So that said, I wanted people to understand that in Rat Bastards that, you know, if you do these things that are wrong, you're giving people the ability to use you and you know, in the wrong ways, you know, and that not everybody survives. And that it's a life that is real, was real, and people should really understand that and know that it wasn't a good life, and not to get involved in it.
Hey, Lex, would you like to ask a question?
Yes. Hi, John. My question is, seeing that you talk a lot about rats in both of your book, how do you feel about modern rats today? People who are whistleblowers like Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, Chelsea Manning, people like that.
These producers are ballsy, man.
I love the question because
I love it too.
I love the question, and I love that. I love the question, and I love the challenge. It's really not much of a challenge for me, to be honest with you. I don't want to sound, sound too ignorant or cocky, if you will. No, I think that all of them, you know, listen, I understand the government more than anybody. I went through the system myself and how the government can be. But I'll tell you, they hurt our government. They hurt our security of our country, is what they really did by giving that information out to other people in other countries. And they weren't honorable. And no matter how bad you might be mad at your country, as though no matter how mad I was at Whitey, I never dishonored in who I was with my integrity. And I feel as those people that, you know, there's probably a lot of people who will disagree with me, but they gave our country up. And that is what I don't like.
I think the other side of the argument for them would also be that they were providing a service for the American people, though, like Snowden.
Yeah, but you know what? In all reality, they were really hurting our intelligence community that protects us against foreign influences, if you will. And they were helping them, you know.
So when you think back to like everything you've been through and just like the ups and downs, you still are totally loyal. And so do you ever think like, do you ever second guess your loyalty? Like there's a case going on right now, which I don't know if you're familiar with. There's an artist named Tekashi 6ix9ine. Have you heard of this story?
Yeah, I know who he is.
So it's just a very interesting.
The rapper.
Yeah, but what's very interesting about him, which I wonder if you could resonate with, is he stood on a federal court and he sold a bunch of people out. But I think about it sometimes too. He was 23 years old and he was at the top of the world, a lot like you were when you were mowing him down, you know what I'm saying, making big bucks. And so he had this decision to make, like, I could leave prison and these people weren't loyal to me anyway. I could leave prison and walk away free, come out to 10 million bucks, or I could take the rap because of the code, even though these people weren't loyal to me in the first place.
It's a great question, because that was me, right? That was me. And obviously, I took the not the easy path. I took the hard path because it was an integrity thing. And that was what we were taught to and, you know, growing up. And that was taught and preached by Whitey and the crew and everything else. So you know what? I honored that. I did. And like Mark Wahlberg had once said to me, he said, you know, John did not do anything wrong. So everybody looked at Mark in the meeting for Rat Bastards, a book. And they said, what do you mean? He said he did everything right that he was taught. So that said, 6'9", I mean, I wouldn't want to be 6'9", I'll be honest with you. I'm just saying, you know, I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like 6'9". I've seen that on the social media already. So Mr. 6'9", you know, be careful.
Just again, I just can resonate with being the same age as him and wanting things for yourself. You know what I'm saying? I get it.
I, you know, I grew up tough. I was trained, I was schooled, I was molded, if you will, to live that life, and also schooled to expect what would happen if it did happen and how to handle it. And Whitey, he schooled me all the way through it. You know, he did. He told me about his stories in life, and inside prison himself, and Alcatraz, and Atlanta and stuff like that, and I, you know, I wanted to emulate him.
Was he just, I mean, I could read a bunch of books and stuff. I actually have an author coming up on Friday. His name's Dave Wedge. He just wrote a book called Hunting Whitey, which is all about just the chase. Was he just like a master salesman, just like could sell anything, sell anybody?
I would say so, absolutely. Yeah, but a very convincing individual at the same time. Very eloquent, actually, and his speaking, and his tone and his actions and mannerisms and stuff like that. And he was, you know, it comes from an intelligent family. I mean, they've all done very well for themselves, he was an intelligent guy. There's no doubt about that. And he was very well spoken, very well mannered, and he could have a conversation with a Doug, you know, in the street, or he could have a conversation with the CEO of a 500 Fortune company. That's how well versed he was. Yeah, and I try to emulate that myself, and growing up. And I never really read a lot growing up at all. And, you know, first thing he said, start reading. Read, read, read. So I became an avid reader while I was away, and for my pastime. And so it helped me. And in some ways, in some ways, you know, I look back and I try to take the good out of the bad, you know, and think about the good that I had gotten out of that life, and not just thinking about the bad. And not having a father growing up and thinking about, you know, the different, the older guys and stuff, but of course, Whitey, and you know, being like a father figure, and saying, hey, read a book. Your hair's too long. Why do you have a little tail in the back? Cut that up. You're a clean cut guy. Be clean cut. I mean, just stuff like that. And from a kid that didn't have any father at home, coming from an older man, it was, he was showing care, so it meant a lot,
Was the story with your dad, was it the same as a kid from Southie where he has the alcoholic dad? Was your dad around at all, or?
No, he wasn't around at all, and he was an alcoholic, and he was out of the house, and I remember him vaguely, and I maybe visited him a couple of times where he lived in Southie. Actually, he lived around the corner from Shea's Tavern, which is still there in Southie on Broadway, West Broadway. He lived around the corner there in a house, and my sisters used to bring me down there when I was a kid to visit him, but it was only a couple of times, and I remember him very vaguely. But I do remember the day that my uncle knocked on the door of my house where we were living, and told my mother. I was standing behind my mother. I was at the age of 9. I do remember him saying, my father's name was Al. He goes, Al is dead. He's died. He's passed away.
What was that like?
It's just little things like that stick with you.
I mean, and that was kind of my big takeaway of the book too, was just like your upbringing was just all negativity. Like there was so much bad shit going on.
There was a lot of bad stuff, but at the same time, there were some good stuff too, for sure. My mother did care, of course, and she was a very caring person in that sense, but she was the no nonsense person. And she led with a heavy hand, if you will. But at the same time, she gave as much as she could, and she gave a lot. And she showed a lot of love in that, if you will. So there were good times, like Christmas and Easter and stuff like that. We had a decent Christmas, and she saved money all year long, and in the bank account every week they take a little bit out and put it in a Christmas savings account, and so we could have a proper Christmas.
That Salisbury steak.
Yeah.
I've never had it. Is it good or terrible?
I haven't had it in many years, but I actually liked it, and I actually, I don't know if I'd eat it now, but why not, right?
Well, you talk about bringing in the book. You brought your wifey to Abe and Louie's. So was Abe and Louie's like the #1 in the city back then? Still is.
Well, it was pretty high. Yeah, it was pretty high. Yeah.
Like if you were to take Lori out somewhere nice, where would you take her now in the city?
Oh no, we don't not so in the city. There's plenty of great places in the city, but we prefer traveling. We prefer traveling to go eat to somewhere like that we really love, like Nobu.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we love Nobu.
Was that Malibu?
No, they have them in New York. The ones in New York. We go to either one in New York, or we go to the one in LA, or we go to the one in Miami. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Oh yeah, bougie stuff, right? I just heard that word the last few days. Bougie.
Well, rappers love Nobu. They always talk about Nobu.
Oh yeah, no, it's my favorite. As a matter of fact, for Mother's Day, I made a few dishes of Nobu's dishes, the yellowtail jalapeno dish, and some whitefish dish and stuff like that for Laurie. I went out, bought the nice grade fish, Japanese store and all that, and I had all the same ingredients that Nobu would use.
Did Lori like your version or Nobu's more?
She loved my version, but
she was being kind, man.
She loves the taste of Nobu way better for sure, and so don't I.
Yeah, so do you do a lot of cooking now? Is that how do you how do you pass the time now? Hobbies, like what do you do?
Most of the time I'm working. Um, and after work or my time off, um, if I'm not working out, uh, um, I'm definitely cooking. Me and Laurie love to cook, and we've honed our skills, if you will, in cooking. You know, like I just said, it doesn't matter what I do. I always want to try to do it the best, and she's the same way.
And the
So,
quarantine's probably been good for that, right?
oh yeah, I was off 10 weeks anyway, quarantined for 10 weeks, and we were cooking meals twice a day, and I gained like 8 pounds, but that since has been lost. And I was still running at 5 miles every other day, if you will, and I still gained 8 pounds. So
So yeah, what do you do for fitness right now?
running, the gym isn't open now, so I've been just doing the running and stuff like that, and which I love to run, and then I'll stick with the shadow boxing and stuff like that, and all that good stuff. But when the gym's open, I'm in the gym hitting the speed bag, hitting the heavy bag. Oh yeah, I'm still at it physically.
But yeah, it's one thing I've realized through the podcast is people who are into fighting, they'll they'll train like a fighter the rest of their life. They just love the training.
Yeah, so I just saw something on social media the other day of an 83-year-old man that was a world champion in 1963. And he was in the gym hitting the heavy bag. And it was unbelievable to see an 83-year-old man hit the heavy bag like he did. It was unbelievable. But the movement, he still had the movement. He had the jab going, the right hand, and he was throwing combinations. It was amazing. Yeah, it was.
And then he had an asthma attack.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, hey man, I really, really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for doing this for us.
My pleasure. And thank you for having me on. And you guys are doing a great job. And, you know, you guys are going places. That's good.
How
I'm
was I
happy for you
compared to
guys.
Don Lemon? Me or Don Lemon?
You definitely. Don's a great guy, though. Don is a great guy. And yeah,
Lexi, you hear that? Lexi's a big CNN fan.
yeah, Don's a good man.
Yeah, I heard that.
Okay, so we have two bits to end the show. The first one is called GDP sales mode. If you saw any of the Mickey episode, you might have seen a little bit of it. But I'm going to give you the floor for 40 seconds. You don't have to use all 40. Most people do, to pitch whatever you want to pitch. If it's wise words, it could be wise words. If you have a product you want to sell, your book probably, etc. You can sell that. But I'm going to count down from 5 seconds. You got 40 seconds to rip it.
Okay. So I
One
would
second.
like,
I got to count down.
okay.
Let me get the timer ready. And I'm going to put my hand up when it's 10 seconds left. Get ready, John. 3, 2, 1. Sales mode.
So this book here is a New York Times bestseller, John read Shea, Rat Bastards. It's a fascinating story, a true story, and a realistic story that is from the town of South Boston. Read this book, understand it, and you're going to enjoy every bit of a real, authentic Boston Irish story.
Done. Effective. You had 15 seconds left.
Okay,
Good
so I
work.
sold something.
Nice.
Hopefully.
Well, you got to get that book on audio.
I know. I don't know why they don't do it. I don't know why. It's up to the publisher.
Let me voice it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
It'd be sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is how we start and end the show. And follow me closely because a lot of people mess this up. You say, hi, your name, and this is my golden hour. Directly after, no break, hi, your name, and that was my golden hour. So you're going to say, hi, I'm John Red Shea, and this is my golden hour. Hi, I'm John Red Shea. That was my golden hour.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Hi, I'm John Red Shea. This is my golden hour. Hi, I'm John Red Shea. That was my golden hour.
That was perfect, man.
There you go,
Killed
buddy.
it. You did a great job. Hey, I want to
I
getting at,
keep telling you, I told you already that I want to be the best at whatever it is you ask me to do or whatever I do, I want to be the best at it. I could have probably been better if I practiced it a little more. Is that the OCD in me?
you got
Irish?
that Irish OCD, baby. I got it
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
So I can promise you I'm gonna grow this show for you, man. I promise. Well,
Awesome.
hey, I want to get an address from you guys so I can send you and Lori some shirts, okay?
Okay,
Hey, and we're gonna release this probably mid next week, and I'll send you over some clips and stuff.
awesome.
Hey, John, thank you so much for doing this, man.
My pleasure. And thank the producers also.
Yeah, they did a great job. They really
Yeah.
did.
Yep,
All right, man.
absolutely.
Hey,
All right.
stay safe. Thank you so much.
All right, buddy.
I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
All
Bye-bye.
right, bye-bye.